will play out on many fronts, not the least of which is our waning and even removing of our support of Israel. I find it interesting that what's going on right now, of course, there's protests all over the world, particularly in Athens, where I guess it turned violent. Free Palestine. And there's no support for Israel. But what I find very interesting is the conspicuous absence of the protest of Arab nations supporting Hamas. If the truth be known, the Palestinians under Fatah or Mahmoud Abbas don't want Hamas to be in control, particularly in Gaza. Now, I know that might seem a little bit complicated to you, but the reality and the fact of the matter on the ground is that everything that we're told that will take place is taking place right before our very eyes. What's astonishing to me? In all the years that I've been studying Bible prophecy, which I started basically way back in the early 90s. Way back in the early 90s, I'm so old. And one of the things that's really astonishing to me is that everything is coming together very quickly. I'm reminded of what Jesus said. John recorded it in the Revelation chapter 20. Jesus said, "Behold, I come quickly." Interesting use of the word quickly in Revelation 20. It's the Greek word tachos, where we get our measurement commonly known as a tachometer. What's a tachometer or tachometer? Well, in our cars, we have this tachometer. Maybe in older cars like mine, you still have a tachometer, don't you? It's right next to the cassette tape player. What does a tachometer do? It measures revolutions per minute. In other words, the time is set, 1 minute. The revolutions are not. See, so RPMs, revolutions per minute. Interesting choice of a word that would be recorded for us in Revelation chapter 20. What's Jesus saying? When he says, "Behold, I come quickly," he's saying, "Behold, I will come at a time when things will be revved up, redlined, over 6,000 RPMs. In other words, things will come together with greater rapidity and greater severity. I think about the analogy or the picture that we're given by Jesus and really the Apostle Paul subsequently. He likens his return to a woman in labor as birth pains, Matthew 24, Luke 21. And he says, when I come, it will be like a woman in labor giving birth. And so he likens his return to the birth of the baby. Well, what comes before the birth of the baby? Birth pains. How do those birth pains come? They come with greater intensity and shorter frequency. See, I'm watching the United States of America decline, fall, morally, economically, spiritually. It is unthinkable. What has become of this once great nation? We've turned our backs on God. And this is what happens when you turn your back on God. I think about Deuteronomy 28 and 29, where God says to the Israelites, if you obey me, I'll bless you. If you disobey me, a curse will come upon you. He doesn't say, I'm going to curse you. He says, no, this will be what will happen in your disobedience to me. A curse by default, if you will come upon you. This is the consequence of a nation who has turned their back on God and I believe is about to turn their back on Israel. Genesis 12:2. Any nation, any people who blesses my people Israel, I will bless. If you curse my people Israel, then I will curse you. A curse will come upon you. And so I think that what we have lying ahead of us is a United States of America that no longer not only supports Israel, but I think that it's going to become increasingly hostile to Christians. It's already unpopular to be a Christian, by the way, and actually this dovetails into our study in the book of Acts. Let me just quickly go on. This was just supposed to be a list, and here I am going into them in great detail without time permitting me to do so. The fifth one is the possible collapse of the world economic system. Now, this must happen. See, we're told that in Revelation 13, the Antichrist will bring together the world economically, religiously, governmentally. The Antichrist will control the world as a one world religion, as a one world government, and as a one world economy. So what happens to the dollar? The value of the dollar will likely decrease. The economy of the United States will likely collapse. Now, about right now, you're looking at me going, wow, thank you so much for that encouraging word. You really don't want us to have a happy new year, do you? I hope nobody had a happy new year after last Sunday's teaching. If I find out you did, we'll have to. Hope you had a blessed new year, or your new year's off to a blessed start. But see, these things must come to pass so that the end will come. See, the United States is nowhere in Bible prophecy. It might be in Ezekiel 38 about verse 13, this nebulous, obscure reference to what might be the United States of America. But even that, it's just like, 2 words, and all we do is just protest this Islamic invasion of an attack on Israel, which, by the way, is a nuclear attack, all with the efforts of wiping Israel off the map. By the way, Hamas doesn't want land. They don't even want peace. And they surely don't want peace with Israel. They just don't want Israel. Israel, in terms of Hamas, has no right to exist. And God says, I'm back on the first one, I realize. But listen, God says to Hamas, God says to Hezbollah, God says to Iran and all of those with her, Putin included, I will destroy you. You will not succeed. The prophet Isaiah said of Israel and of us, no weapon forged against you will prosper. But as I watch this whole world just kind of going to hell, quite literally, I'm reminded that it must happen before the end can come. The United States has to become a non-player, a non-issue. The economies of the world have to collapse in order for there to be this cashless society. So the Antichrist can control the world with what most believe is a chip implant on either the forehand or the forehead, without which no one will be able to buy or sell. Some have speculated that, the one in the forehand you'd be able to buy everything online with just, instead of a click on the mouse, it would just read all of your identification and information, password, user ID, just right through and to the chip. And by the way, have you been hearing about the statistics of ID theft? I mean, it's just incredible. If you have a chip with all of your information, it's sort of a deterrent for ID theft, isn't it? What are you going to do? You're going to have to chop off their hand. Here, get the chip out, and that's not going to work. How about the head? You can't do that. See, this is going to seemingly solve the problem of ID theft. So there's possibly, and I wonder if this year we will see this happen. 2009, people are really afraid. I saw one email that a brother sent to me stating that they estimate 25% of retailers are done this year. They're out of business. They're bankrupt. It's over. The world's economy. And by the way, here's what's really scary. Am I scaring you yet? Have a nice day. Have a nice week. Have a nice life. Listen, this is what's really scary. Look at the United States economy and how perilous it is. Now, do you know that the economy of the United States is still stronger than all the other economies of the world?